Hey, Jeff from Knock here. Welcome back to our series on using the Knock MCP server to build your notification features. In this quick video, we'll look at a few different ways you can use Knock's documentation directly with LLMs. In this video, we'll look at how to access text files designed specifically for ingestion by a model, how to get markdown versions of each documentation page, and then we'll look at how you can search Knock documentation directly in an app like Cursor or Claude Desktop using our RAG endpoint. This tutorial assumes you've already configured the Knock MCP server, so if you haven't done that, check out part 1 in this series. And with that, let's get started. Okay, so let's look at a couple of different ways that you can use the Knock documentation with your AI tooling. At the highest level, one of the things that the documentation does is produce files directly for LLM ingestion. So if you come to developer tools and then building with LLMs, you'll notice that we have links here for a file called llms.txt and llms-full.txt. Now, both of these files are made to be provided to AI tools to help them traverse the structure of the Knock documentation to find the relevant pieces that you may be looking for to satisfy a particular query. So llms.txt is basically an index of the different links on the Knock documentation website, along with some descriptions. So the other option is llms-full.txt, which basically provides you a full markdown output of the entire Knock documentation site. So this is all of the pages in Markdown ready to be ingested by an LLM. Now in reality, as you can see, this is a ton of content, and we probably don't want to provide that much context to the LLM to accomplish a specific task. So let's head back to the doc site, and let's say, for example, that I want to implement a notification feed in React. I can come to that specific doc page, and once I'm there, you'll see this copy for LLM button in the top right-hand content area for each doc on the website. Now, if I click this, I can either copy as Markdown or view a Markdown version of that file, which I can provide to the LLM as context so that it's much more specific and focused in how we approach that task. Okay, but there's one more way that we can access the information in the docs directly from tools like Cursor using our search documentation MCP server tool. So I'll hop back into Cursor, and we have open this user profile component where we want to add a notification feed right about here. So to do that, we can create a prompt that asks Cursor to search the Knock documentation for implementation instructions for this default feed component. So we can create a prompt that's something like, I want to implement the popover variant of the Knock feed in this user profile component. Can you search the Knock docs for instructions on how to do that and implement them in this file? And so we'll go ahead and execute this prompt. And the first thing that should happen is that Cursor recognizes that we've asked it to search the documentation, and we can sort of look at the query that's going to get sent there. And then we can also look at the response that we get back. So we can see that it got some results, and now it's going to start doing parts of the code implementation for this particular project. Okay, great. And so we can see that it actually pretty much nails it. And so if we hop back out to the docs and look at this example, you can see that it pretty much, uses most of what we've provided in this code sample here to implement that in our project. But there are a couple of things that we can change about this. So one, Cursor doesn't know right now that I've already implemented the Knock feed provider and provider at a different level. But we need to keep the CSS. So let's go ahead and tell it to do that. Let's say I've implemented the Knock provider and Knock feed provider at a higher level of my application, so you can remove those components, but please keep the CSS import. So we'll go ahead and fire off this prompt, and then hopefully we can preview this in the browser. It's going to take just a second to scan the rest of the code base. All right, and it's going to remove our providers while keeping the notification feed functionality and the CSS. So we'll go ahead and accept these changes, save this file, and then we can hop back into the browser, and then boom, we have a fully functional notification feed ready to go. Awesome. Being able to provide the right context to your AI model is an important part of developing with these tools. Between using llms.txt, markdown versions of docs, or using our RAG doc search endpoint, you have a number of different ways to load this important context into your tools. Stay tuned for the next video in this series. Thanks for watching, and knock on.